We have had a very interesting introduction. There are many points there which are thought-provoking, but I do want to make a point that Christians and Jews in the Quran are people of the book. They are people who belong to the same Abrahamic tradition. And it is enjoined in the Quran that people of the book shall be allowed to practice their faith, and not only people of the book, but people outside the book as well. There was a group, a sect at that time, and the operating surah, the operating verse in the Quran, which is the basis of the truth about how Indian Muslims behave, is lakum dinakum wa ilya din, your faith for you and my faith for me, and coexistence according to your own spirit. But the subject today is media and intolerance. I have a problem on both counts. To begin with, intolerance is not a media project. Media is not intolerant. Media has not been, and media is not intolerant. Media, like anyone else, has biases. But the intolerance that we are seeing today, and I'm glad you pointed out, starting with Narendra Modi ji's prime ministership, which is this phenomenon, is a political project. It is not a media project. Media is only a mirror of a political situation that has been deliberately and artificially engineered for political purposes. And media is a mirror of everything. Sometimes that mirror exaggerates, sometimes the mirror distorts. But the mirror does not generate or create the fire. It is politics, and I'm sorry to say some politicians, who create the fire. And this particular round of fire has been created, and I'm saying this very candidly, by the left and in cohorts and in cahoots, with the Congress, sometimes the Congress leading and sometimes the left leading. An artificial climate is being created with which a new kind of division between are being sought, and this has a political purpose, because the whole objective of this artificial politics is how to deflect the country, or how to deflect the government from a very clear, undiluted mission enumerated 1,000 times by the Prime Minister, a mission of development, a mission of jobs, and a mission of development and jobs for all youth, with no one, no community, no section being left behind. And in fact, if there is a stress, then the stress is clearly on jobs for the poorest of the poor. That is the thrust of development. But I would like to dwell on this subject. I don't want to evade it. I want to dwell on this subject of quote-unquote intolerance. I have a problem with the word tolerance. The problem is tolerance is somehow reeks of patronage, as if I'm tolerating you, as if I'm doing you a very big favor by tolerating. That is not what we mean in our Indian civilizational context. Never forget that Indian civilization is much older than Indian politics, and certainly even Indian democracy. And these are civilizational values. In our civilizational value system, we don't do the other person a favor by tolerating him. We have something that I am proud to say, something even higher than secularism, which is actually a Western word. In the West, the origins of secularism lie in two contexts. One is the secularism of, let us say, the liberals, which is the separation of church and state, and the other is the secularism of Marxists, which is the elimination of faith. Which is the elimination of faith completely. What we believe in our country and have always believed in for thousands of years is what I call faith equality. That every faith is an equal, not only before the law. It is actually easy to have faith equality prescribed by law, but faith equality in social life, in common existence. Whoever says, recently we had two conferences. One conference was a conference of Barelvi ulama, Barelvi believing school clerics, addressed by the Prime Minister, and I hope you heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech there. And we spoke of the value system that emerges from treating the whole world as a family. I think we are the only civilization which proudly acclaims the whole world, every human being, as a family. I hope you heard his speech there. You heard the speech of what the contribution of Indian Islam was to our civilization. There was a second conference, a conference of rather more hardliners, at which, unfortunately, the Congress President, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, sent a letter, where, in front of a world audience, I'm afraid she indulged in grandstanding at the cost of this country's civilizational values, in which she said that India's secularism is under threat. Under threat from who? Whoever thinks that our faith equality is under stress has never woken up in the morning. Because if you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you will hear every morning is the azan. The second thing you will hear after the azan is temple bells. The third thing you will hear is Guru Granth Sahib being recited from some Gurdwara. Fourth thing that you will hear, if it's on Sunday, are the church bells. There is no country in the world where you can hear all four. I challenge anyone who goes abroad. There were some people who, when this artificial storm was being created, threatened to go abroad. I want to ask them whether they will hear the azan in Washington or in Paris. If they can answer yes, then let me know. They have never seen this country's lanes, by-lane streets. They have never seen shops beside each other. They have never seen festivals being celebrated by everybody. They have never seen the manner in which a very complex social collection. We have every single religion, we have every single faith, we have atheists. Everybody has the perfect freedom. In fact, the best definition of faith equality as a guiding principle of our community, guiding principle of our polity, and then guiding principle of our constitution, in my view, was given in the modern era by Swami Vivekananda. And in a lecture where he was traveling in the south, I think perhaps Tamil Nadu, a little to the north of where we are now, where he said, and he was asked the usual question, because, at the turn of the century, in the last years of the 19th century and at the turn of the century, the great question always was, when will we get freedom? When will India become strong enough to recapture its independence? And Swami Vivekananda said, I tell you, that is the truth about the country. He said, you want a strong country? Then, if you are born a Hindu, be a good Hindu. If you are born a Muslim, be a good Muslim. If you are born a Sikh, be a good Sikh. If you are born a Christian, be a good Christian. And if you are true to your faith, you will be true to your nation. And if you are true to your nation, the nation will be united and the nation will be strong. India is not a secular nation because Gandhiji was secular. Of course, India is a secular. Gandhiji was secular because India is a secular nation. And as I said, our secularism means the equality of the faith, not only before the law, but in samaj, in society, in our behavior, in our practice. Of course, there will be problems. Of course, there will be incidents. How can in a complex situation, we are human beings, there will be incidents. Does anybody know even the statistics? There have been far more incidents of a communal kind in the UPA years than in the last 2 years. Just check. These statistics are available in Government of India's files because everything is recorded now. But when certain political parties, particularly the left and the Congress, want to create, to defame the nation, they will turn a mole or a spot into a cancer, or they will seek to. But Indians know the truth of what it is, and therefore I commend to you an opinion poll yesterday. After all, everybody thinks that it is the middle class which is most disturbed by all this. An opinion poll yesterday by the Economic Times, front page. The Economic Times is not a pro-BJP paper, it's an independent paper. Like most newspapers, it takes an independent view and tries very often to be hostile to the government, which is perfectly fair. Any media should be able to do so, that it is the right of media. The Economic Times survey showed that among the middle classes, taking one particular instance, the instance you referred to, which is the Jawahorla University, it's a symptomatic instance. Symptomatic. Where it says, who is responsible? I think 46% people said Congress is responsible, only 11% said BJP is responsible. I think 25% said that extreme student activism is responsible. That is what the truth of what people believe and what people say. But the politics, I tell you, the only challenge, the only thing left in the armory of the Marxists and the Congress against the politics of development, against the vision of development, the only thing they have left is the politics of fear. And this politics of fear is dependent wholly on heightened exaggeration or blatant lies. Heightened exaggeration, again you heard, minor incidents in some church, which are regrettable, but were converted into a major, as if a conflagration was taking place. Yes, if anybody is killed, when a certain person was killed over an incident in UP, the finance minister of India stood up within hours and said it's barbaric. No one should be killed for anything. Violence has no place in our system for whatever reason. And if anyone does indulges in violence, he should be severely punished by the state government. Law and order is state government subject. Catch that person. Do whatever the law says. We have the freedom in our country. We are proud of the freedom of the country. The freedom to speak, the freedom to eat, the freedom to live as we like, but we have to live within the law. If the law gives you the right, perhaps you should do so. If the law doesn't permit you to do something, you cannot do it. It is as simple as that. We, in our country, the challenge before us really is the challenge of development. I have a question to ask my media friends, my colleagues, and it is one of those questions which sometimes I feel, if I would have been still an editor, I would have raised it. Let us cut to the bone, because this politics of fear is most widely used in order to incite Muslims. An economic survey, which state, by the way, has the highest percentage of Muslims? As a percentage, not totally in numbers. I'm sure you all know that state is Bengal. It has almost 30% of the vote is now Muslim. Since 1972, between 1950 and 1947 and 1967, there were stable Congress governments in Bengal. From 67 to 1972, there was huge instability, United Front governments, as was here, as was there, and so on. But from 1972 till today, how many years now? 40, 45 years. A child born in 1972 is today a child who is crossed middle-aged. Of course, unless he is called Rahul Gandhi, he has become middle-aged. If he is called Rahul Gandhi, then he is still a teenager. Youth leader. But a child born in 1972, the reason why there have been stable governments in Bengal is because the Muslims by and large voted for whichever government took power, and that gave them the numbers. So in 1972, Siddhartha Shankar Ray came as chief minister with a huge majority. 77, for 35 years. In Kerala, you don't know how lucky you are. You never had the left for 35 years. For 35 years, from 72, the left front ruled, each time getting the Muslim vote. And the Muslim vote switched. Trinamool Congress, Mamata Banerjee. So, for how many years? So, what is my point? I'm trying to make that each government got from the Muslims the fullest support possible. What did these people give the Muslims in return? This recent economic survey released by Amartya Sen. Released by Amartya Sen. Therefore, I am deliberately saying released by Amartya Sen, because Amartya Sen is an icon of the left, of the Marxists, of the Congress. Says that 80% of rural Muslims, and by the way, most Muslims in Bengal are in rural, 90% are in rural. 80% of rural Muslims in Bengal are below the poverty line or on it, below the poverty line. Why is nobody talking? This is intolerance. This is the whiplash of hunger. This is the whiplash of hopelessness that you have driven a community to. This is betrayal. This is hypocrisy. This is the politics of betrayal and hypocrisy that you have indulged in with Muslims. And because you have no answer, therefore you want to each time fool them with the politics of fear, as if some ghosts are coming, some danger is coming. There is no danger. This is the reason. This is the reason why these debates keep going on. There are so many instances that I could give you. I can tell you, and I use this in quote unquote, that obviously the age of intolerance is over. Why? Because nobody is returning awards anymore. Right? At one time, every day, huge number of people would, and do it separately. Yeah? So each one got the picture in the paper. But that has stopped. So obviously after the Bihar elections, with great tolerance has prevailed all over the country. These are political projects. Before this election, therefore, before the present round of elections, same thing. How many times do you say you will boil the same old dal? Same thing has started. Now, I find strange controversy which I can't understand. I really cannot understand this controversy about Bharat Mata Ki Jai. I just do not understand it. Let me say in the beginning, let me say very categorically in the beginning, I am a great believer in free speech. And I also believe free speech includes the right not to speak. So if you don't want to speak, you are welcome. But what is this debate all about? What is this fatwa all about? Why has some group of clerics suddenly jumped into the fray in order to send a fatwa and make this into a controversy. Let me explain the controversy. How many words are there in Bharat Mata Ki Jai? 4 words. Which word is your objection to? Can't be to ki. Ki is only a, right? You cannot have any objection to Jai. Jai only means victory or glory. Right? So you have no objection to Jai, and obviously, unless you are insane, you cannot have an objection to ki. So your objection is to Bharat Mata. Right? There is nowhere in the Muslim world, or at least from Persia, anywhere that you know, if you want to speak Persian, everywhere your country is called Madre-Watan. Everywhere your country, what is Madre-Watan? Your motherland. So Iran is the Madre-Watan of Iranis. Every country is the Madre-Watan. We all call our country mother. What is new about it? And except for the Germans who call their country father. Everyone calls their country motherland. I don't understand the controversy. If I say Madre Watan Zindabad, I am secular. If I say Bharat Mata Ki Jai, I become communal. If I speak English, glory to my motherland, I am very secular. But if I speak Sanskrit, I become communal. I mean, I don't understand it. Do you understand it? I seriously, do you understand it? What is this controversy about? You don't want to say it? I wish you say it. I would be delighted if you say it. Because it is a sign of love for my mother. Love for my motherland. I'm not asking you to worship anything. I'm asking you to declare your love. So what is the controversy? It is a totally artificial controversy being created, in my view, on the eve of the Assam elections, on the eve of the Kerala elections, on the eve of the Bengal elections, on the eve of the Tamil Nadu elections. Once again, to deflect the people from what they truly need, which is liberation from poverty. That is what Bengali Muslims need. That is what the poor of any. Poverty has no religion. Does hunger have a religion? No job should have a religion. Hunger, poverty, that is the challenge. But if you frame the political debate in terms of hunger, in terms of poverty, then these people who have run the country for 70 years and run Kerala for 70 years have no answers. And therefore, they will create artificial issues in order somehow to deceive the people for one more time. Deceive the people for one more election. That, my friends, is, and I tell you what they're really worried about. They're worried about the fact that the young are not ready to listen to these old alibis, to these old excuses. There is now a great stirring going on. Even in Kerala, you will see it. You will see the stirring. You will see an undercurrent. This undercurrent is being led by the young who want jobs, who want self-respect, who want vision, who want a future, and who are beginning to believe, I am being cautious, who are beginning to believe that finally we have got a Prime Minister who is on track, to deliver. And not only to deliver to just the middle classes, but to deliver to the poor. I mean, if I have a small sort of complaint, which I was even telling some friends in the morning and about media, it is, why don't you give coverage to a scheme and a project like Mudra? It is one of the most radical one of the most radical schemes, one of the most radical economic programs in 70 years, in 7 decades. Because at the heart of the Mudra program is something that we have not seen before. It is trust in the poor. Trust in the poor to become the smallest unit, micro units are also being treated as businesses. Because every single sewing machine is a business. One single sewing machine run by one mother, one sister, one woman. And for the first time, a bank loan has been created by which a person who wants a sewing machine can go and therefore earn livelihood. The Prime Minister wants a nation of entrepreneurs who don't just come from the broad spectrum of the educated classes. He wants entrepreneurs, and he knows that they can become. You know, he understands poverty because he has lived through it. He does not need any theoretical knowledge of it. And he understands what the poor are capable of. He understands what the poor are capable of. And all he is doing, people talk of ease of business, isn't it? You hear so much talk of, ease of business. In World Bank, we are 7 ranks up or 6 or down and so on. Okay, all that should be sorted out. What he is doing is creating ease of business for the poorest of the poor. Because Mudra loans are being given without collateral. So, the vegetable vendor, the person who is out on the cart, from whom you buy vegetables from your family, do you think he doesn't run a business? Yes, he does run a business. He also has a debt cycle. He also needs an advance. We are treating, the Prime Minister has now said that the future lies in that micro business. Of course, we want big businesses which create thousands of jobs. Of course we do. But alongside, there should be hundreds and thousands of small businesses which add 2 jobs each. Now, do you know how much money has been disbursed in the first year in Mudra? Regrettably, nobody knows. And it has not been adequate. 100,000 crores has been disbursed. The budget for this second year is 180,000 crores. Nearly 300,000 crores will have gone to people. Now let me tell you, why don't newspapers cover it? Well, not because newspapers are in some strange conspiracy. No. It's because these loans are meant for those outside their readership. It's quite rational. But that is where the distress lies. That is where the problem of a nation lies. It lies among those who are suffering the pangs and I tell you, they're suffering the great curse of hunger. That is what has to be at the top, and that is what is at the very top of our priorities. Not sometimes, very often, I believe the world is more objective about us than we are about ourselves. I don't know what labels the left and the Congress attached to the Prime Minister. Look at the manner in which he has been received in Saudi Arabia. Because the Saudis know the truth of what he is. They understand his vision. They know that he means development for all. They know he means development for all. Such is the despair of those who cannot take his Saudi visit, that unfortunately, mischievously, they try to create morphed pictures in order to defame the Prime Minister. And regrettably, some journalists happily tweeted it. Any action being taken against them? I don't know. I don't think so. But it doesn't matter, because the people know the truth. The people it will be perhaps remiss of me on a subject like this if I don't mention the incidents at JNU. So I will mention the incidents at JNU. It is linked to freedom of speech. As I've said before, I am the biggest votary of freedom of speech, because without freedom of speech for 40 years I would not have been able to eat. As a journalist, that was my stock in trade, and without it I could not be a journalist. So I defend freedom of speech with all my might. I defend it with the Jeffersonian principle, as a fundamental, or as a right which is a fundamental pillar of the democratic system. Freedom of speech appears in Article 19 of our Constitution. From Article 19 come the freedom articles. Other freedoms come after that. But this is very first enshrined, freedom of speech and expression. This was passed like the rest of the Constituent Assembly, as the rest of the Constitution, in November 1949, and we accepted the Constitution, as you know, in January 1950. Who was the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister was Jawahirlal Nehru. There is no, remains the outstanding icon of liberal India. That is why Jawaharlal University is named after him. How many people know that within 1 year came the very first amendment to our Constitution? The very first amendment to our Constitution. You know what that was? Who introduced it? Jawaharlal Nehru. And what did the first amendment say? That freedom of speech is not an absolute right. Freedom of speech cannot be permitted to incite violence. Can it? I remember a famous judgment of the American Supreme Court. I forget the name of the justice, but he's very famous, one of the great iconic justices of the American judicial system. And when he said famously, freedom of speech does not include the right to shout fire in a crowded theater. You cannot introduce public disorder and panic. And Jawaharlal Nehru brought the first amendment, and what were his reasons? There are 3 or 4 reasons. Among them, security of the state. He realized very well, easily, early. Why? Because in his lifetime he had seen the rise of forces of disintegration and the forces of secession. And also he knew there was, the left will not allow you to remember it, but the left's history begins with an armed revolution in Telangana and elsewhere. And he knew that India was facing 2 threats. One was from threat of secessionists. It had not gone after 47. And second, India's democracy was facing a threat from Marxists. So he introduced the amendment. Then, in 1963, I'm sure it's the 16th amendment, but it might be the 17th or 15th. In 1963, Jawaharlal Nehru himself piloted the 16th amendment to further clarify what he meant by security of state. And what was the clarification? The clarification, he defined that the integrity of the state cannot be challenged. Integrity of the state cannot be challenged. What were the incidents? I wrote in the New York Times. I said, you were doing a cultural evening in the name of those who wanted to secede from the nation. We wanted to destroy the nation. Cultural evening. I said in New York Times, I said I would like to see how America would have reacted if there had been a cultural evening celebrated at any Ivy League college in the name of Osama bin Laden. I would have liked to see what your reaction was. I must say, to their credit, they printed it. although as you know they take whatever positions they take. Those slogans, I've heard that. If you talk to anybody, they say, oh, but those videos were doctored. Sorry, please, 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 don't fool me, Chodo, don't fool yourself. There were 7 videos. And by the way, before the New York Times published that article, they did all the research, so they're not going to publish things just because I said so. And rightly so. That's good editing. According to the lab, 2 were doctored. And whoever did the doctoring is very foolish, wrong, absolutely wrong. I do not agree with such things. I do not agree with lawyers who come out and indulge in violence. It's unacceptable. But if you say 2 were doctored out of 7, 5 were not. Look at the 5. Can you say those slogans were doctored? Asking for the dismemberment of India? That we will leave the country in ruins? And the state is never going to react? You think of the reaction, which is one section has happened because the state has reacted. Imagine your reaction if the state had not reacted. Are we going to be totally impervious to the honor of the flag, to our unity? Yeah, I know, I have been an editor through the great 1980s when this country was faced with secessionist movements that killed in thousands, in Punjab, in both our northwest and in northeast. I don't need education in what it means. Let me just tell you one thing which I hope you will remember. Mark Twain defined, you know Mark Twain, the American essayist, humorist, and he was not being funny. I tell you, he was being utterly serious. Mark Twain defined the job of media very well. He said, media means attacking the government 70% of the time and defending the country 100% of the time. Shall we not rise to the defense of our nation? Governments come and go. You know, that is the good thing about democracy. But nations are inviolable. Nations unite us. Politics divides us. But the nation unites us. Are we going to stand and remain and not even protest? Not even offer minimal protest when somebody challenges the unity of my country? I'm sorry. I yield to no one in my defense of freedom of speech. But for me, freedom of speech does not extend to cutting my country into 1,000 pieces. No. That is a secessionist slogan. And we must also have the courage to tell those who want to secede that India is outside. You underestimate the strength of India when you talk nonsense of this kind. Thank you very much for your kindness in being here.